Oh, dear. Oh, my goodness. Is it the problem again where I flicked off too soon? How about now, Bully? That could have been a bit pear-shaped. I think maybe now we're live and it's a bit of a delayed live stream. We are into the first game, which is Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm looking for the nod here from Bully that we have cleared the technical hurdle, hopefully.
Fagara's there.
Are we away there now, Bully?
Looks like we're on the... Yeah, it looks like we are. So... Look, as we mentioned at the top of the show, for anyone that might have missed it, we're just talking about the April Fool's joke that is the Sonic murder mystery, I suppose you'd call it.
Yes, Sega's April Fool's joke. It's a murder mystery, Sonic the Hedgehog, dead on a train. And you were saying earlier, Bully, sorry, I think there was technical difficulties and we missed it on air, but similar to the Phoenix Wright franchise, you were saying, I believe?
Yeah, very similar to Phoenix Wright sort of game. So... essentially a text-based adventure that you sort of read through, you move into a different scene or a different area. You've got to look through that scene, find some clues, and then you put those clues together to interrogate one of the characters that's in that room and to try and find out, I should say, who murdered Sonic. And as I say, I won't... is he really murdered? Is he really dead? Who knows? Who knows what's going on? I won't spoil that one.
That's the weird thing. I thought Sonic was murdered about 10 years ago with the Sega Master System. No, am I out of place here, or
he was murdered after Sonic 2, I think.
Yeah, is he back? Is he? He's back. Oh wow! Is it like a zombie Sonic?
I think he was resurrected with Sonic Unleashed, wasn't it? That was, I reckon, that was probably the best Sonic game I've ever played. So
that did pretty well. I would argue he was revived with the movie coming back. What was that, 2020-ish?
Was that
first Sonic movie?
Was that his first face or the second face?
The second one, after everyone got upset and then over it. The cute Sonic, the one they went with.
I'll pay you that. The revival probably came after that, the first and second Sonic movie, and maybe for Jim Carrey as well.
But interesting game. As I said, I'm not going to see it through to the completion. Bully, do you think there's any chance we're going to get this on consoles at any stage?
I would be surprised if we didn't, but whether it's just one of those things they've thrown it out on the cheap and published it straight up on Steam, that might be the reason why it's dropped. But yeah, I don't mind it. And it's one of those things that while the kids are sort of hogging the TV and the other games consoles in the room, I could probably sit back in the corner on my laptop and just throw a set of headphones in and just sort of click through it without having to put too much energy or effort into it. So I reckon I'll at least give it a bit longer and see how we're going. And again, I haven't checked how long it is, so I'll have to see. If it's a 10 or 15 hour game, probably not. If it's a 4 or 5 hour game, I reckon I'll probably see it through.
A tiny install. I reckon it would be longer than a couple of hours, but that's very good. On to game 2 this evening, Forza Horizon 5. Now, I just wanted to highlight the new Rally Adventure DLC. So, where's the base game set? Was it Mexico this year? So it's not in Mexico anymore. It's like a little sub-island you sort of get transported off to, and then it's all just a new landmass, all built around rallying. Got the steering wheel with the frame hooked up there. Got the force feedback, and I've got to say, the way they have implemented the force feedback for feeling like your back tires are digging in as you go around corners, they've absolutely nailed the implementation. Hands down, best feel in the force feedback rally wheel I've ever felt. I think it's an absolute thing of beauty. Bully, any chance that we're going to get you in Forza Horizons 5 new DLC?
I'll have to have a look. I think, I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the show last week, but I went out and got the wheel for the PSVR 2 and Gran Turismo 7. So I'll put a bit more time into that. And if I keep up with the wheel, I reckon I'll go and get the adapter that can switch it over for the Xbox. And that being the case, I reckon I'll jump into it. But it's probably not high on the agenda, although it does look pretty good from the gameplay I'm seeing at the moment.
Fair enough. And what about you, Ace? Are you much of a rally driving fan? What's your history with rally drivers? Colin McRae rally back in the day, possibly?
Nah, man, I was always a Need for Speed fan. I think that sort of arcade style of racing where, you could unrealistically go into a corner at 100 kilometers an hour and pull the handbrake and come out of it as all chill. That was
Yep.
sort of more my style. I remember getting my hands on the first Forza and like everyone going, oh, realistic racer, and it was, and I played it. And I was just like, oh, but why can't I pull a handy at 120 kilometers? And it just sort of threw me off. But I get those hardcore racers who are just all about this game and this style of game, and especially if you've maybe got the steering wheel and the setup at home, if you've got that ability, then yeah, I can get it. I can get the appeal. But for me, no, thank you. I like my games a little bit more. My racing games a little bit more arcadey.
Fair enough, mate. And you've got to get into the studio at some point. We're not covering it tonight, but we do have the PSVR with what is it? Gran Turismo 7, and that's got the VR mode. So going hands-on with the steering wheel while being in the VR headset and going around that Gran Turismo track, that is something else. That is.
I thought you guys were trying to get me in there to play Dead Space on the VR or some sort of.
Oh yeah,
game
we'll do some of that as well. Yeah, some
Yeah.
Resident Evil Village, mate. You can be pulling the corpses out front of the house.
Do they make adult diapers for big fellas? I might
Make
need
sure
one.
you pick up some on the way in, man. But that's it. I love this new Rally Adventure DLC. And check out the Let's Play. It's available on the channel. And game 3 this evening, NHL 23. Now, we're looking at Bully's Let's Play footage here that was tidy. Thank you very much, Bully. But over to you, Ace. What are your thoughts of the NHL 23 game? And are you playing on PS5, I assume?
Yeah, on the PS5. Look, some stage during the week, so maybe on the weekend, last weekend, I was looking for something new. I love all my American sports games. This isn't a sport that I follow a lot of, but I remember from the old Wayne Gretzky's on the 64, I was very into it, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a crack. It was $49 on the PlayStation Store. It was on special. I thought I'll give it a crack. And can I tell you, this is probably, out of all the sports games that I've ever played, the most difficult sports game that I've ever played. And I'm telling you, on the base level. So basically, at rookie, at the easiest level, I had to tune back everything and then tune up all of my skills, tune back all the CPU skills to even give myself the ability to score a goal. And like just to try and work through the tactics, but visually the gameplay is amazing. You can see it on the screen, the way the characters move. And then now I'm probably in my career mode. I think I'm 15 games in. I'm starting to get learning some set plays, learning the ability is like, oh, pass. It's similar to like my first time playing like an NBA 2K. The first time I played that, I was like, no, I can't work it out. But you just got to keep going. But yeah, it's a very interesting. It's probably not a well spoken about sport in Australia, especially because we sort of just obviously we don't get a lot of ice down here. But I'm very much enjoying it, and it's got those same career characteristics as your 2Ks and your NFL Maddens and all that sort of stuff. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it.
Excellent.
I'm enjoying the challenge as well.
That's great, man. Because your desire to cover it tonight, I went out and found it on the Xbox Game Pass, 10-hour free trial on there. And I put in, and I didn't even know this game was done in thirds. That's how new to the sport I am. I was surprised by that alone.
So the first game that I played was a draw up to the third quarter. So they play a fourth and then they go into overtime. So the first time I played it, like, third, fourth quarter,
Yeah.
The second time I played it, I was behind in the third quarter. And then the quarter ended and I lost and the game finished. I'm like, what the? So like, it's just in that sense, like just the ability to be able to learn a new sport and cover it and sort of start to understand the offsides and stuff like that. Like, it's a great introduction into it. And look, it's a pretty cool sport. Like, I spoke to another mate the other day. I was like, you should get this. He goes, no, I'm going to get FIFA. And I said, but this is pretty much FIFA on ice.
Yeah.
So give it a crack, and so I think he's going to get it as well. And look, if you're not an NHL fan, but you like the American sports, I think you'll like this.
Yeah, good call, man. I enjoyed my time with it, but I knew none of the rules and I was terrible at it. Bully, you went hands-on for this Let's Play, mate. What were your thoughts?
Pretty much the same as Ace. I haven't played, and I think I mentioned it in the Let's Play, I haven't played an NHL video game since NHL 97. So we're talking almost 30 years since I've had a crack at one, and jump back into it. It probably took me 5 minutes to sort of get my handle around some of the controls and that sort of stuff. But once I did, if you keep watching the footage there, you'll watch the score start rolling up, Ace, because I think I ended up winning 4-1 in the end.
Your first game?
First game, yeah.
Oh my lord! What? Oh my
First
lord!
game.
Oh my lord!
Well, the only thing is, I'm not the biggest NHL fan or ice hockey fan in the world, but I do follow a lot of American sports, and I do sort of loosely follow the NHL, so I know roughly sort of what the rules are. And again, as I mentioned it in the Let's Play, ice hockey, I think for mine is something that really lends itself to the video game format because it's fast paced. It's a short rink that you're playing on. It's not a massive field that you're playing on where you sort of got to work your way from one end to the other like you sort of do with FIFA a little bit. It's sort of up and back. And the biggest thing is there's big hits. You can smack your opponents over. Sometimes you get a penalty if you're a bit over the top, but a lot of the time you can just knock them on their backside and just, the game keeps playing. So
What about the punch on?
from that perspective, I didn't get a punch on. I was hoping for that, but didn't get there. But
there's punch on.
I reckon it. I reckon it certainly lends itself to a video game format, and even with the puck itself when it's moving around the rink, it's got that sort of little highlighted thing around it. Otherwise, you'd never be able to find it. So that sort of makes it a bit easy as well. But I really enjoyed it. If you're sort of sitting on the fence and you've got Game Pass, I'd suggest sort of jumping into it and having a look because, as Troy said, you've got a 10-hour free trial for it. I've probably put that half an hour into it that I played that one game and sort of enjoyed it. If you played another half a dozen games, that might be your fill and you sort of think, yeah, that's okay, I've had enough. Or that might be enough to entice you to go out and buy it, in which case, that sort of trial's done its job. But, not too bad. And I don't know about your comment there, Ace, that there's not a lot of ice in Australia. Going to Melbourne and see how much ice is
all that stuff, yeah, there might be a bit in the CBD. I'd like for Australians, we like our sports a little bit violent, a little bit high contact and stuff. We're big rugby and AFL people down here, and I'm actually really surprised this sport. It's quite high impact, high contact, high speed, that it hasn't sort of garnered a little bit more support, and because of that, and you're allowed to punch on in this league. You legitimately are allowed to take your gloves off and throw punches at another player, and you get a 2-minute fucking cool up. So pardon my language, but you get a 2-minute cool down. It's I was very taken by it, and I could see myself now going to try and follow the NHL a little bit more.
I don't even know when it's on. When's it's on season? Is it our summer or?
Well, I tried to look on KO.
No,
I don't think
it's basically the same as. It's basically the same, I think, as sort of the NBA season. So it runs from October-ish through the North American winter through to sort of this time of the year.
Yeah, right.
I don't know whether they're into their playoffs right now, I think.
Yeah, okay. Wrapping up. Well, that's cool. The last thing I'll say is I'm blown away by the presentation. It's once again a sport game at the point where you're looking at it and you're like, could that be a real game? Out the corner of your eye, it's really past that point, but I'm not really a hockey guy, so I won't be going back to it. But there was nothing offensive about it from a gameplay standpoint. As you say, believe you're into the sport. Top pickup with
2K do a really good job on their sports games.
Yes, they do. Better than EA. EA's constant server pinging is so frustrating.
100%.
All right, then. Game 4 this evening is over to you, Bully, for some Dredge action.
Well, Dredge, so this, for me, sort of came out of nowhere. Being the physical collector I am, I was sort of scrolling through the upcoming releases and saw this game, Dredge, that was basically a half price off a normal full price, AAA title. So it was... I think it was about 55 to 60 Australian, so we're talking about sort of 20 to 25 US dollars. Thought, I'll have a look. That's, started having a look at where I could get it in the shops and couldn't get it anywhere. So that sort of piqued my interest even more. Is it, there might be some sort of limited availability to it, or is it something that once it sells out, that's sort of the end of it? So as soon as I worked that out, I put my order in and had it delivered, not through Amazon, and I had a bit of a look at it, and it actually enticed me, some of the story. So you're basically set up as a fisherman, I suppose, and you sort of lumped into this town. It doesn't sort of really explain to you how you've found your way into this town, but there's the gameplay itself just basically revolves around you driving your boat around, dredging, fishing, that sort of stuff to start off with. And then as you sort of start to go and you upgrade your boat and the story starts to unfold, it actually branches out into this sort of mystery thing where there's a strange bloke on one of the islands starts asking you to find these various relics, and whenever you find them, he gives you these weird powers and upgrades and stuff like that.
Great, jumping in on that. What kind of a weird power? Can you give me an example?
Well, I think the first one he gives you is so you can be anywhere on the map and you can walk back to his island, which is near the main sort of town that you it's that you sort of base yourself out of to start with in the center of the map, and then there's there's another part to it where you can pretty much go wherever you like during the daytime, and during the daytime you can sort of there's no issues or whatever. But as soon as night starts to roll around, it gets really creepy. You start seeing weird lights in the sky. You start seeing, there was an example of another boat that sort of looked like yours that I saw off in the distance. And I thought, oh, what's that? And you start driving off towards it. And as you do, you sort of get halfway towards it and it turns into this weird creature and starts trying to follow you and attack you and that sort of stuff. So it's got a day-night cycle that you sort of got to roll through. And but you can't just leave it to going out during the day because there's things that you need to go out during, like there's some fish that you need to find or areas that you need to go to. You can only access during the night. So it sort of gives it a bit of a different gameplay element to it as well. And like even little things that were strange as well. You can see in that gameplay footage there that there's it's almost like a harbour sort of thing that's almost the tutorial level. And you can see there's a couple of rocks in there, but for the most part, it's pretty clear. But when you get to night time and then the fog comes in, you've got this tiny little light that you start off with in your boat that you can sort of only see a little bit in front of you. And you could have sworn that you're going in straight back to your harbour and your pier and your town, your normal sort of base. And there'd be nothing in front of you. But as you start going through the fog, randomly these rocks just start popping up in the water, or these little things that you swore weren't there just start popping up. So it's not just a matter of go. It's not sort of like a life sim type game where it's you just go out and fish and make your money and all the rest of it. There's actually some stuff behind it as well, in terms of the story and it sort of keeps you going. I think I probably put probably close to 15 hours into it in the last couple of days.
Okay, and sorry, keep going.
No, and I was just going to say, really enjoying it. So. It's probably after that sort of time I needed a little bit of a break for it, but it's certainly something I want to get back to because I want to see what all those mystical elements and the stories about as well. So
yeah, nice. And is that mini game with I assume that's just the timing, like a 3-hit golf swing mini game for the fishing there? Is that the only mini game, or are there a bunch of them?
No, there's variations of it. So you'll see that one on the screen there where you sort of got to tap the button as it goes into the green areas. There's different variations of that, but they're all, more or less the same. They don't take a heck of a lot of effort, but what they do is if you miss time it doesn't punish you in terms of not being able to catch a fish. What it does is it punishes you in terms of the clock rolling forward quicker.
Okay.
So if you went and sat stationary in the middle of the water, the time won't move. But as soon as the boat starts moving, or as soon as you start engaging in activities like fishing or anything like that, that's when the time and the clock starts ticking. So by doing that, it actually, if you think you're in an area where I'll just quickly go and do this and I've got plenty of time to get back to the harbour before dark, if you start mucking up some of those mini games, it will actually speed the clock up and you'll find yourself sitting there in the middle of the ocean in the dark, and that's when as I mentioned before, those creatures and stuff sort of will come out and try and attack you.
That's when they release the Kraken.
Well, it's funny you say that. There is a Kraken type creature that I've come across. So
I'm assuming in this game, like the punishment for failure is, and like running into rocks and stuff, is that your boat sinks and then game over.
Not really to start with. So it's almost like the ship's got its own health bar. So what it'll do is if you start hitting too many things, you've got a certain amount of area in your boat for storage. It's very much Resident Evil type inventory management, where you can whatever fish you catch or whatever items you've got to sort of fit them within your storage. But what'll happen is if you start hitting rocks, is it'll say your hull's damaged. So that will take 2 or 3 storage slots away. And then if you hit another rock, that might take, damage your engine. So your engine doesn't go as well, or it might damage your fishing poles and stuff, so you can't fish. So then you have to go back to the harbour and pay to have it repaired. So it doesn't impact you in terms of, as soon as your boat's going to sink in the middle of the ocean, it's game over. But it does impact you because it stops your ability to go through and progress doing activities and progressing the story as well.
How do you find the sessions? Are they short? Like, is it something you just put in 15 minutes and then get out of there, or is it a longer commitment?
We talked about this before.
Yeah, I was saying to Ace before we started. It was it's really funny in that you sort of go, oh, there's a bit on the map that I reckon that'll only take me about 5 minutes to get to, and I'll get to there, and then I've got some other stuff to do. But on your way to that one point, you go, oh, what's that over there? What's that over there? Oh, while I'm here now, I may as well just finish that one thing I was going to do. And what you thought was going to take you 5 minutes is taking you an hour. And it literally just sucks the time out of you. It's one of those games where you don't have that awareness of how much time you're actually putting into the game until you stop and go, oh, where's that last hour gone? And what have I,
That sounds like high praise.
Oh, look, I'm really enjoying it. And as I said, for the cost of it, it's half the price of a normal AAA game to start with. So that's one of the things. And I was really impressed. It was developed by an indie studio out of New Zealand, and I think it was only a couple of developers there that were building the game. But it looks art wise and the way it's put together and presented, I reckon it looks fantastic. It plays really well. The progression system can be mildly tedious at times in terms of there's various items that you need to find to be able to upgrade your boat, and one of them is wood that I sort of struggled to find on a regular basis. Whereas some of the other things that you needed to find, you were finding them everywhere. So that sort of held me up a little bit. But to be honest, that's my only gripe. Otherwise, I reckon it's a fantastic game. It's got enough of a gameplay loop in there to keep you going. It doesn't sort of wear you out. There's enough of a story and a bit of mystery, and there's little bits and pieces that you find along the way that sort of fill in bits of the story or add to the mystery and all that sort of stuff. I reckon it's well worth a look at, and certainly I'd imagine there's a lot of people that probably even haven't seen it or knows that it exists. But certainly, a fantastic effort from. I don't know what other games. I haven't had a look to see what other games they've put out, but certainly they're a studio that really, in my opinion, needs support going forward, because they put out a fairly good effort up front, I would have thought.
Yeah, nice work, man. And I wouldn't have even known this game existed if you didn't cover it on the channel. So thanks for bringing it to my attention. The last question from me, and then I'll hand over to Ace, mate, is just that art style looks phenomenal. Is it that good when you're playing it as well?
Yeah, it does. It does look really good. Like it's sort of weird, especially with the day-night setting. So I think most of the footage that I got the other day was just basically during the day, but you can see the sunset and the sunrise, and then even if you go into it during the night, it's an entirely different atmosphere, and takes on a whole different tone while you're playing it at night. And whereas during the day, it's sort of that bright, cheerful, let's explore and see what's out there. It becomes almost the opposite at night. It becomes very enclosed with the fog, very dark, and it's almost like you go, let's just find the nearest port and bunker down there for the night, and then I can go back and finish what I was doing, the next day.
Yeah, nice one, man. Sorry, Ace, your points.
Just seeing what you were saying before, sort of about going out fishing, catching, and assuming that you take those catches back, those hauls back, and you sell them, make money. Do you use those monies for upgrade on the boat, which then for instance, make you faster, make you be able to fish quicker, etc.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different sort of upgrade parts to it. There's one where you basically you find these items that it's almost like a progression tree for your fishing rods, for your engine, for your nets, for your trawler, for that sort of stuff. So that's one sort of upgrade part, and then there's another upgrade part where you've got to go and find particular items, as I said before. So there's wood or cloth or whatever it is, and then you've got to find a certain amount of those for each upgrade that you want, and then you've got to pay the money on top of that. So it's sort of there's as I said, two different sort of upgrade parts to it, and then the part where you have that progression system by the different elements to your boat. Once you've sort of unlocked those, that will then allow the shop, or the shop will then provide upgraded equipment, so upgraded rods and reels and engines and stuff that you can then go and purchase to put in there. But you've also got to upgrade your boat as well. So you start off with a small cargo area and a small area to put your rods in and your engine in and your lights. And the more that you sort of progress that, the bigger your cargo bay becomes. But you can also, because there's only certain sections in that cargo bit that you can allocate to engines or that you can allocate to rods. So you need to progress that as well to be able to upgrade. So there's different upgrading elements to it, that you're not just sort of going, oh, let's go out and just catch a bunch of fish and, just pay them away to upgrade. You've actually got to go through a series of sort of steps to upgrade. So it's fairly straightforward once you start playing it, but it's not, let's just, burn and churn our way through it, I suppose.
And you say this was Steam?
No, it's PS5 I've got it on. So
on the Switch by any chance?
I think it was.
Sounds like a perfect Switch game.
I'll double check for you, but I reckon it was coming out to pretty much everything, including Steam.
We just need to get some of the what's the Steam handhelds called? They need to release those in Australia.
Steam Deck.
Yes.
Although I did see Asus is releasing a version.
Really?
Their variation of it, yeah, which
How
I haven't
much?
read much into, but not sure, and I still don't know whether it's coming to Australia. It was just sort of whispered during the week. But Ace for your, it's so Windows, so Steam, Switch, PS4, 5,
Ooh.
and the Xbox Series and Xbox One, so pretty much everything. And it's getting pretty universal praise from what I can see. It's sort of mid-80s across the board on Metacritic. So
nice.
I shall be dabbling.
Thank you very much, Billy. Great report. All right, then, Game 5. This is me, and it's MLB The Show 23. Quick straw poll. Has anyone else on the panel gone hands-on with this one, or is it all me?
Not 23 yet, but that's because when I spoke to you the other day, you said with the Xbox Live Pass, it was free. So I'm
yes, it is.
A little bit spewing because I'm playing on I think 20.
It is such a mind-blowing thing to turn on the game and be on your Xbox, and then you see the PlayStation Studios logo roll as you're going into a game. It's still a crazy feeling, but I absolutely love this game. They've gone next level. Finally, that crowd is looking better than it ever has, but they've crossed the uncanny valley now with the crowd. Don't notice that nobody in the audience blinks. Every audience member has those creepy, dead animated eyes that are just in constant shock. And once you notice that, you see it everywhere. Every character in the audience has just got that dead eye stare, which is creepy. But as long as you're not looking at that, a fantastic game. Now, there's a whole single-player career. They call it Road to the Show mode, and you start out and you get drafted and you can work your way up into the major leagues and try and set your career, but none of that interests me. Ace, I'm dying to know, mate. Now, what I do, the only way I like to play the game is turn it on, play live rosters, and play today's Washington Nationals game. That's how I like to play the show, and I'm devastated that the game achievements, are not structured around that gameplay at all, so I can play it all season. I mightn't even get one achievement, mate. But how do you go with baseball games typically, and what's your preferred method of play?
Well, the MLB, the show, I think it was 20. I was all the Road to the Show. And created my character. I made him a Ken Griffey Jr. It was a style where it was a hybrid, so he was fast running, good fielder, and a good hitter.
Yep.
So you can go for something. And then I started putting everything. Well, I don't know how this one works, but like with that, it was basically you were rewarded attribute points based on how you played. So once I sort of figured out the game and I was able to sort of hit home runs and stuff like that, I started getting a lot.
Well, I can tell you. Just on that point, man, this is the first time I've noticed it in Road to the Show, man. But as I said, I don't normally play it. But this time I noticed when my character, so I've just made a second baseman, but even when he's in the box, if he watches a ball go past and doesn't swing at it, he'll get a few attribute points. Like his batting stats will just a minor increase. So the whole game, it's like, oh, he fielded the ball cleanly, a couple extra points in fielding. Is that how detailed it used to be, or did it used to just be a slab of XP at the end of the game? That was my memory of it.
it seemed to be this a very similar scenario where
Yep.
if I fielded clearly, you'll get a plus, and it would either
Yep.
be you'd get 3 pluses, which would mean the maximum amount of attribute points that you could earn for that, or you
It
get
sounds like
one
it's still
plus
that system then.
or a
Yep.
minus. But like looking at this, like the graphics look like they have been upgraded exponentially.
It's seriously like you're watching a game. You don't know until you look at the audience and see everyone staring at you with dead eyes. But other than that, I absolutely love the presentation style. I loved last year's 2022 version. And
Yeah.
as I said, the only step up that I've noticed, it's all excellent. The only step up is they've put extra work into the crowd. So now the crowd's even believable on the wide shots. I absolutely love this game. If you've got Xbox Game Pass, no excuse not to try out the best sport going around in baseball.
I
I
don't know.
will continue to play it all season along with my Washington Nats. Go, yeah, mate.
Does everyone know that you and I, baseball, we're talking about
No,
tennis? Yeah.
we do though. Ace and I are on the same baseball team. We had training this week, mate. We're getting back into it soon.
We are winter leagues coming up, and I hit 2. Well, technically, I should have been 3 home runs last year. Hoping to smash that record this year.
Excellent, mate. I love it. Now, Bully, are you back with us? Or should we move along unless you've got any final thoughts on game 5, Ace? We'll move on to you for game 6, if you like.
Yeah, we can move on to me if we would like.
All right, mate. Stardew. I keep going on what a Strawdew. It's Stardew Valley. Now, this is not a Troy game at all. The install is available on the channel. And if you're an Xbox Game Pass subscriber, this game is also available to you. But over to you, Ace, for the main thrust of the investigation.
Well, I tell you very much, and like you might be looking at me going, look at this guy, he's a big fella, he's got a big beard, a big tough boy, he's having a drink, he's having a vape, What is he doing out here playing Stardew Valley? And just like we said with Bully before, and seeing a lot of similarities with this and Dredge, it's a great game. Once you get into it, once you you start nutting it out, once you start collecting materials, and once you get your farm up and going to a certain point, then and you're producing money, like you just get absolutely addicted. Now I've put a lot of hours into this.
Ballpark it for me, mate. How many-ish hours? 50, 60?
Well, to give you an idea, I think it caps out, like not money-wise, but if like it takes a very long time to get $1 million, and I think I'm at like $600,000-$700,000, because I've just basically been hoarding all my cash. Now, similar, like listening to you, Bully, talk before about Dredge, it just, a lot of the things that you were saying was sort of piquing my interest. Like, oh, yep, that's like Stardew. That's like Stardew. You collect, you grow crops. You start off with a farm, basically. You've got a basic farm. You have X amount of crops. You have X amount of land. You'll see you've got to start clearing your land to create more farm space. You'll start off with like, I think it's copper. It's copper, like watering tins, copper scythes, copper axes, which will take you a long time to chop down trees. Now, as you perform actions, those actions will chew up your daytime. You only have a certain amount of daytime per day before your character has to go to sleep. So you really have to sort of be able to organize yourself in a way that you can maximize the amount of things that you can do. Now you can see right now on the screen, he's like watering one tile at a time. So as you progress through the game, you can upgrade your thing to a silver, I think it's steel, and then gold. And then steel will give you 3 squares, and then gold will give you 4 squares around you. And then you get, I can't remember, it's a purple one. And then you can basically do like 8 squares around you. But you get yourself to a stage now, and basically my farm's pretty well self-run, where I have a few silos. I have pigs that collect mushrooms. I have cows that I milk, and chickens that I collect eggs from every day. I take the eggs down. I make mayonnaise. I take the cow's milk down. I make it's not yogurt. The milk I just sell. But yeah, I tell you, look, if you're into these games where you're just going to burn out 3-4 hours and you don't know what happened, this is one.
Can I ask you, mate? You just said you got your daily quest, so to speak. Do you mean that it's a real world day? Every day, do you pick up your Switch and drop a bit of time into Stardew, or can you put it down for a couple of months and come back?
Yeah, it's not real time. So like you wake up in the morning, and let's say a day game time. I've never actually timed myself, but it might run for like 15 minutes. So within 15 minutes, you got to make sure that you water all your crops. You got to make sure at the beginning at least you got to feed all your animals. You got to clip your animals. You've got to clear the farm, because if you were to just log in, log out, log in, log out, not sort of log in, but like just have your days and go to bed, your farm would eventually just get taken over by trees, by
Yeah, okay.
grass and weeds and stuff. Your farm starts to deteriorate, so then you got to go and repair all your walls and things like that. Like it's
Reparioso.
I tried to use it, but apparently it didn't recognize my spell. You'll also have a stamina bar. So like you see, you're chopping trees down. Now, for say if you go out and just like chop down trees for a whole day, you might lose all your stamina, which means you can't go and water your crops. So you've got to be selective of what you do. And for me, my approach was always look after my crops, sell my crops, make money, and then from that it would give me the time that I was allocated to clear my farmland. Now I'm
Is
playing
there
on this
a
map that you're seeing now, and
Yep.
I've cleared the whole farmland. I wish I could get my Switch up and show you on the screen because everyone would just be like, "That is one well organized farm." And look, once you get to a certain stage in this game, uh, you can be a little bit more relaxed, because you know your processes.
Yep.
But like getting through that first stage of sort of developing the farm and getting things, and like not to mention that there's quests in this. You can also go dungeon hunting,
Oh,
and
really?
collect certain items and things. And then there's missions on top of that. Then there's different worlds that you can go to as you progress, and
So
it's
is there a story as such? Like, are you playing through a linear story? Is there an arc
not so
narratively?
much. Not so much. It just runs on a yearly loop, and you play through the same sort of yearly loops. But then there's things like for instance, there's two sort of main plot lines. There's a big supermarket that's trying to sort of take over everything, and then there's an old school community center with what we might call sort of an aliens per se, sort of these little creatures, these nature-driven creatures that are trying to sort of say they're trying to survive. And you can pick an arc, which one you want to go with. I went with the native creatures who were trying to like sort of build, so I rebuilt the community center. From what I've read, you probably you get a few things that are a little bit more handy if you go through the big conglomerate supermarket. But
Yep.
I like the idea of just keeping everything natural. And I tell
Yeah,
you,
no, that's
I can't spruik enough about this game. And like if it's just the sort of this game for me is very much lying in bed, chuck the switch on,
Zen
and
game.
yeah, and I just go through and I just plow my fields and I plant my crops and and the
Nice.
change of season comes, I change my crops over, and I've got I get sprinklers now that water my crops for free, so which frees up a lot of my time. But great game, great
And
game.
this game first came out in 2016. It's conceivable there'd be a sequel on the horizon at some point. Is there anything you'd like to see added for Stardew Valley 2, Ace? Is there anything it's missing?
You know what? When you have perfection, don't touch anything. And saying that, just I'm pretty sure, and I'm not going to back myself. I'm going to go 99%. This game was made by one person.
Yeah, no, very true. It was indeed. Or the initial build was, I think, when they started porting it to other systems, they had to outsource. But yes, you're completely correct.
Yeah, and I tell you, if none of you out there have ever played this game, and it's an older game, and like Bully, I'm surprised when you said you love Dredge. This should be on your radar.
And it didn't grab you, Bully. This is your footage we're watching from yesterday or today. You captured this. Not your style of game, Bully?
Oh, it's one of those things. I reckon when I actually loaded it up to get the footage, I had 2 or 3 save files sitting there.
Oh, really?
Of each one of those game files was about half an hour to 45 minutes in length. I've started it a couple of times. I've sort of started to get into it, and then for whatever reason, I maybe it's like you said, Ace, just that starting bit where you've probably got to work a lot harder at the start than what you do sort of once you put a bit of time into it. Maybe it's just one of those things that I just sort of sit there and go, I don't know if I want to put that 4 or 5 hours into it to get to that point where you make it a bit easier. But
Realistically, it's probably more than 4 or 5 hours.
Or more than 4 or 5 hours. But it's funny because it's one of those things I've spent, and it's probably not dissimilar to Animal Crossing to a degree in terms of the almost repetitive nature to it, where you get that sort of you get a little quest or you've got something to do and you've got to go and water your crops and you've got to go and do this and that and all the rest of it. It's probably not dissimilar to those sort of games where I've put a fair bit of time into those, and for some reason, just Stardew Valley's never really grabbed me. But that's not to say I wouldn't get back into it at some point because it's as you said, I can see it. I can see the hooks getting in, but it's just it just for whatever reason hasn't grabbed me at this point.
Once it grabs you.
Fair enough. Let's move on to a game that certainly grabbed me. This is Sniper Elite 5. Now, as you all know, I got this code for this on Xbox when it first came out. What was that? Late last year, October, November, somewhere in there, I feel. And it was fantastic on there. But I just picked it up the other day in the Easter sales on the PlayStation 5. It's currently, it was either 40 or 44% off at the minute for the deluxe edition. So it's the base game on PS4, PS5. And also the season 1 content, which is 3 additional missions and a bunch of weapon skins and character skins, which includes, Bully, the mission to kill Hitler, which is exactly what we're watching right here. Now, I love the implementation of it, and I've been playing it back and forth on the Xbox and the PS5, and I think it looks a little crisper on the PS5, but I feel like on the bullet cam, sometimes on the PS5, it can look like it drops a frame or two, whereas that isn't present on the Xbox. So it's tied as to which you think is better, but an absolutely phenomenal game. I love the Sniper Elite series, and you'll be happy to know, Bully, I'm finally starting to play it with a bit more stealth action. I'm not being detected constantly, and I think it's much more true to the developer's intent of how to play it, but thoroughly enjoying my time with it. And I know you've played it before, and Ace isn't there, so I suggest we move on to the newsroom, Bully, if you're happy with that.
Yeah, let's smash it out. And just while we're bringing it up, we actually got Unky in the chat there that said he just finished the Mario movie. It was awesome, and tune in next week for a full review, which I'll be able to jump into as well because I'm going to see it tomorrow. I think you are as well, Troy.
I am as well. So yes, indeed, tomorrow all 3 of us will be able to go on. But for now, here's the news. First up this evening, a story from Video Games Chronicle here, Bully.
Yeah, so I think most of the stories this week are from Video Games Chronicle. They had a fairly in-depth sort of news reporting this week, so I think we've managed to scoop most of them from this. But this particular one, Vampire Survivors, so the next lot of DLC coming out on April 13th, which will include 8 new characters, 13 new weapons, a new stage, new music tracks, and 20 new achievements to unlock as well.
That is the very important thing, the extra achievements. Now, Bully, I've gone hands-on with the only other DLC for this. Have you played that, the previous one that came out? Was it January or February this year, I think?
December, I think it came out. And no, I haven't gone hands-on with the DLC, but I was just having a look at the price there. So it's only $1.99 US, so
yeah,
probably about $3
exactly
Australian, which is pretty good value. In terms of DLC that you get now, you know, there's a lot of games that'll charge that for a new hat or something like that. Whereas, you know, they're continuing to support it pretty well, ongoing. So, you know, if you're into it, and it's one of those games. It's funny you talk about games that you can lose time into, because this is certainly one of them where you just sit there and before you know it, you've dumped a couple of hours into it, just sort of battling your way through. So any more content that comes with it is certainly welcomed, and especially at that price, I would have thought.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. The last DLC had the map. It sort of tied itself in knots, but the last map they released was conceivably the hardest with the new bosses they added. However, they added so many doglegs to it, it worked out you could stand at a specific dogleg point and no one could actually touch you. You'd just constantly shoot out from the edge, no one could get in, and you could bow it down pretty quick. So I absolutely love the last DLC. I ate it up. I'm looking forward to this coming out and going hands-on with the new map, and I think you just said 20 new achievements, Billy, and that's very exciting. Ace, have you gone hands-on with any Vampire Survivors, mate?
Probably not in my realm of possibilities. Is it like vampires equals scary nighttime? Jumping out of my seat, so no, nothing. Mate.
This is a wimpy version of a vampire game.
It's the old I shouldn't say 8-bit and zoomed way out, no gore.
I'll say it's wimpy because it won't give you jump scares, but it's hardly wimpy in terms of the gameplay. It's actually quite challenging.
Yeah, see, look at that. Like even that in itself, like those Elden Ring games and styles like that, like nightmares.
I love it. But all right, then let's move along to story 2. Bit of Star Wars action.
Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So the reports of those that have had a bit of a hands-on look at it, shaping up to be an excellent sequel. And I think the writer for this one, Jordan Middler, has actually described it as essentially what you would expect out of a third game instead of a second. That's how far progressed it is from the first in terms of updated gameplay mechanics. We're looking at a lot more of an open world in Jedi Survivor as opposed to the first game, which was it had elements of it, but for the most part, it sort of steered you down a certain path for most of the levels that you're in. And it also expands significantly on the combat stances, which is, something we've seen a lot of in some of the Soulsborne games. Is that depending on what stance you take, depends on what weapons you've got, what moves you've got, and how you sort of react in combat as well. So, looking very enticing, and it comes out in only a couple of weeks as well. So, certainly that'll be.
Is that to say it's got the what is it, high, mid, and low stances from, was that Neo, I think, had those?
Yeah, so Neo had that. I think what they're saying here is, if I can find it again, is that they're basically saying the 5 combat stances are single, double-bladed, dual-wield, crossguard, and blaster. So you've got...
okay, so it's like weapon types. Okay.
Yeah, so depending on what type of weapon you got would then depend on what abilities you've got, how you can use that weapon, I guess what your blocks and your counters are, and that sort of stuff. So
it sounded like they're going
obviously
to move into Ghost of Tsushima style, where
that'd be cool.
Yeah, every sort of style sort of is relevant to a certain type of enemy who use it. So like you'll have to switch when you get sort of swarmed, but you have to switch between styles to sort of be able to fend off. That would be.
I like the sound of that.
It'd be interesting to see if that's how it plays out, or whether it's more just sort of, I like the moveset that comes with a single lightsaber, and that's how I'm going to play, or I like the moveset that comes with a dual wield or whatever it is, and that's how I'm going to play. So I guess it just sort of depends on how that ends up playing out. But certainly looking very enticing, and I think we've only got less than 3 weeks to go until that one comes out.
I'm excited. I'm going to have to really hurry up with my Hogwarts playthrough and finish it off before it appears, I think.
Well, that's another one I've got. I've finished that. I've just got to go back and I've just got to go back and tidy up some of the quests and the trophies and stuff on that one.
And how are you going with it, Ace? The old Hogwarts? Well, I think you and I have spoken. Sort of, it was so, like when you launch that game and you're into it and you're like, this is the best thing that I've ever seen since sliced bread.
Yeah,
and you probably get, I don't know, a good 8, 10, maybe 12 hours in, and you're like, oh, this is getting a bit repetitive, and the mission type and the enemy type's pretty repetitive, and you're just like, okay, I'm doing the same thing and I'm doing the same thing, and then like even you get to a certain point where you're ready to progress a little bit faster than the game's letting you. And so the game's actually holding you back, and you're like, well, this is annoying, and there's no breakthrough, which is very frustrating. And
fair enough.
I tip into it a very, very occasionally now because I want to finish it because it's worth finishing.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I need to allocate some time and finish it. Very good. That's it for Star Wars. Oh, Bully, any word? Have we got a PSVR 2 mode for Star Wars Survivors?
Nothing that I've heard of yet. I don't really think it'd be the type of the game. I can't imagine playing that in VR. That'd squeam my stomach no end. I think flipping around and doing some of those sort of moves, I would have thought.
Fair enough. Let's move on then. Next wave of Xbox Game Pass titles. This is exciting. What do we got, Bully?
Yeah, so April's new games are coming out. And it's funny, we were just talking about NHL 23 before, because that is coming on April 13 to the EA Play section if you're a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber. We're also getting...
Can we just mention, why is Xbox Live so much better than PlayStation?
Because they're the underdogs. They've got to have a better service.
It is out of... And I'm PlayStation blood through and through. And I'm thick. And I see this Xbox stuff and the games that they release, and I'm so tempted to I'm going out to buy one.
I love my Xbox, man. I can't sing its praises highly enough. They're in second place, but that Xbox Game Pass can't be beat.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Anyway, sorry to cut you off, boy.
No, that's all right. It's funny you say that, though, because there's a lot of the bigger type games that have come out for it that you sort of play day and date. Like we had Atomic Heart. I know that had its critics, but certainly that was a good get. You've had Wo Long, that.
Don't forget the Rhythm One, Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush. We've had some pretty good games, but I often find with it is there's games that come to it that you sort of might have been on the periphery, or even games that you haven't even really heard about, that you end up playing that in no other circumstance would you have played, other than the fact that it's on Game Pass and it's free. Well, I suppose free as part of the service. You're paying for the service, but you're getting them each and every month, so you can sit there and sink 4 or 5 hours into a game and go, yeah, that's for me, and I'll keep playing it, or no, I've had enough of that. And for the value that you're getting out of it, which I think is somewhere around about 20 odd Australian dollars a month, I think it's about 15-ish US dollars. For that sort of price, I think well worth the money, especially when you're paying basically the same amount of money for the top tiers of the PlayStation Plus, and probably not getting as much value out of it. I wouldn't have thought.
I agree completely.
I think Troy was talking the other day when you told me you had MLB 23, the big show. I'm like, what do you mean? Where'd you get it? Did you guys go and buy it? And you said, no, it's free on Game Pass. I was like, it's just bizarre that they're just throwing these great games at you.
Yep.
And it's not, and Xbox for some reason, and that it's a great console. It's a great operating system, and they're still not getting that same traction. Like it's nearly turning me. Like, just
do you think they'll get there with the Activision acquisition?
Oh, yep. That's pretty big.
Well, the more I see that, and the more I read of it, that the regulators that were initially opposing it, I think they're one by one starting to come around and fall. So I would suggest that mid to late this year they're going to get the go ahead, and as soon as they get that and get some of those Activision Blizzard games running on Xbox, that's going to lift it to an absolute master tier in terms of.
We're talking potentially World of Warcraft on console.
Oh, don't.
They haven't said that, but yes, please. Come on. Wow. Yes.
I could tell you what, because if World of Warcraft comes on a console,
there goes Bully and me and Ace's 600 hours.
Yeah, I'm coming in. We're doing.
No, I refuse to ever boot that game up again. That sucked that you talk about games that suck your life away.
You actually had divorce papers written up for that game, didn't you, Bully?
Well, you're probably not far off. That was just something that absolutely sucked my life away for, I reckon, a good 2 years. And I just got to the point where I just had to shut it down, uninstall it, and get rid of everything. I can't go back to it.
I love me some World of Warcraft. Bring it on, Ace. I'm on your camp, man. Bring it on consoles. Buddy. Let's get into it.
You and me.
I love it.
That's right. What
do we have
for the rest of the Well, for the rest of the Game Pass titles that we have got coming is Iron Brigade, which came to the service today.
Is that a tank game? Is that Tank Sim?
I haven't really looked into it, but I think no, I haven't looked into that one at all. I couldn't tell you what that one's about. You've also got finally Ghostwire Tokyo is coming to Xbox after a 12-month exclusivity window for PlayStation, which is very underrated. I thought it was a fantastic game. Once you sort of get your head around sort of the world that you've got to traverse around Tokyo. And I will say, if you're playing it for the first time, just get in there and tweak some of the control settings to speed up the looking and moving movement, and your gameplay will be infinitely better.
It will, mate. I'm keen to get the install done when it does hit Game Pass, because I wouldn't mind betting they've flicked the default controls to be what everyone was, exchanging online to being the better config. I reckon they may have made that front and center. Hopefully they did.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if they did. As I said, NHL 23 coming on April 13th. Available to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscribers, and then we have Minecraft Legends, which is a day-and-date release. Obviously, an Xbox property. There is coming on April 18th, but we're also losing a few games as of April 15th. Life is Strange: True Colors, Moon Glow Bay, Panzer Corps 2, Rainbow Six Extraction, The Dungeon of Naheulabuk. If I've mispronounced that, well, bad luck.
I'm certainly not going to correct you on it.
The Long Dark and the Rift Breaker are all leaving this month as well. So again, a pretty good month. And as always, they generally tend to drop a couple of sneaky ones in there as well during the month. So wouldn't be surprised if we get another couple that crop up in the next week or two as well.
The only interesting or thing of note I'd like to point out is it's interesting Rainbow Six Extraction is now leaving Xbox Game Pass, where it was just added to PlayStation Plus subscription. It's like they've done a trial in Xbox over, I don't know, 3 or 6 months, and now they're running the same experiment on PlayStation, but they're offset the two experiments. I find that fascinating. I'll be interested to see whether it comes back to either or both services in short order. But story 4 this evening, Pokemon.
Pokemon Stadium coming to the Switch Online expansion pack this month. So I'm not sure if there's any other games that have been given a release for the month, but certainly this is one that's been fairly highly requested for the N64 consoles. So you can battle your Pokemon out in a team of 6 across 4 different tournaments in Stadium mode, or you can go back to Kanto's Elite Trainers in the Gym Leader Castle, and that's from Nintendo. The one thing I did see, though, is that, and a few people are a little bit upset about, is and I can't remember exactly how it worked off the top of my head, but you used to be able to essentially battle out against other players. I'm not sure that that will be available when... Oh, no, it is. It's saying now featuring online multiplayer battles when it does come out on the 12th of April. So there you go. You'll be able to jump in and battle out some of your friends with your own Pokemon there. But hopefully there's a few extra games come to the service, because I did an update a couple of weeks ago of the March releases, and they were quite putrid, to be honest with you. We had Side Pocket for the SNES that was trash. We had Kirby's Dream Land 2 for the Game Boy, and then Burger Time Deluxe. But overall, I thought it was a pretty average month. The only one of any sort of real note was the Metroid on the Game Boy Advance, was probably the only one of any sort of note. But otherwise, pretty average offerings, I would have thought. So hopefully they do a fair bit better for the month of April.
Nice work. Looking forward to that video mid next month. Another update video from your good self there, Bully. Story 5 this evening, God of War Ragnarok. Details?
God of War Ragnarok. This will make Gunky happy. Maybe this is why he hasn't joined us tonight. He's gone and seen the Mario movie, and then he's reloaded up God of War Ragnarok, which has received a new Game Plus update, which includes new equipment, new enchantments, and an increased level cap on the game. But obviously, you have to have played through the game and finished it once to get to that new Game Plus section. So for any fans of the game there, it's, again, one of those ones that I've sort of got to get back to at some point in time. But certainly, if you are hankering for a bit more of Kratos and Atreus, you can certainly jump back into it with the new Game Plus there.
That would have been a great headline if they could have included that it was version 2, but they burned version 2 on launch day of God of War Ragnarok. So what's this, version 3, the Game Plus update, do we think?
Not sure what version we're up to.
Craziness. I still haven't finished it. Ace, have you finished it yet? I think all three of us are... Oh, you finished it, mate?
No, I nutted it out. Remember I said, I can't remember what game was coming out, but I was, I've got to finish this before I get the next one. I can't remember.
Yes.
Insane. And like, it was an interesting thing. Like, I played for the first part. I think one of the last episodes you had me on, and I was like, yeah, I hit a bit of a crossroads.
Yeah.
And then I went back into it. I was probably at the halfway point, and I went back into it, and I was like, right, I'm gonna. And the second chapter to that game just absolutely sucked me in. Like, and then the final finish to the game, everything was just like, it just keeps building. Like, and I cannot sing that game's praise enough. What Sony have done, and like what Sony do with most of their games, it just seems to be well written, amazing graphics, great gameplay, and I don't know if I mentioned last time that I was on like the addition of and if you haven't, block your ears, the spear and the combat style with the spear. I think actually me and Unky spoke about it.
Yeah.
It was incredible, and once you get used to it, like I'm assuming, and I'm going to assume that there's going to be a third chapter, and depending on who they use as their main protagonist, I'll be back.
Excellent work. I love it. And Bully, you're yet to finish.
Yet to finish. Yeah, it was. It didn't grab me at the time. And I know everyone sings his praises, but I just sort of got bogged down with some of the nonsense, like that section where you played as Atreus and you sort of had to sneak around, and it just sort of sucked me out of the game as such. But
bully.
well, that's what everyone keeps telling me, that those sort of slow sections that you got to work through. It's well worth it in the end. So we'll see how we go. But I think they've actually come out and said that that's it for the North setting in terms of the storyline there. So I'd be interested to see where it does go, whether it goes back to the Greek.
Did I hear whispers of Egyptian? I thought I read something that I thought and not to break news here, and I don't want to be like, oh my Lord, breaking. But I heard that there may have been whispers that the next chapter was going Egyptian.
That could be cool.
Maybe, but no, play it up, Ace. Play it up. Breaking news. You heard it here first from Ace.
I should have a bumper or a stinger or a sound effect or something.
The next God of War is going to be set in Egypt. It's called God of War Isis.
Wow.
Oh my!
And that's the Egyptian god, not the terror group. By
the way. Thank you for clarifying, Bully. You had me confused.
Ra. I was going to go with Ra, but anyway.
Okay, God of War, Ra.
All right, then. Story 6 this evening. PlayStation. What's
Story
happening?
6. Probably not a big surprise, given that as we were discussing last week, I think we were talking about E3. Potentially who was going to turn up, and then lo and behold, the next day they said it was cancelled. So probably not much of a surprise that most of the big players are now coming out and telling us what their plans are in that week. If they're going to do something to fill the void, or whether they're going to wait to the Summer Games showcase. But PlayStation's come out and told us about their planned video game events. So they're talking about having an event in that space that E3 did fill. We know that the Summer Games Fest is going to be on June 8th, and the Bethesda Showcase on June 11th. Ubisoft is on June 12th, so it'll be somewhere around that sort of time frame, but we don't have an exact point at this stage. But certainly they've got a fair bit to show, so it'll be interesting to see what their time frame is, whether they do try and jump Xbox and come out before them, or whether they play the safe game, see what Xbox has got to offer, and then come out and try and trump them on the back end of that. It'll be interesting to see how they go about it.
It will be good.
Did you guys mention last week that E3 was cancelled?
Yeah.
We discussed that some of the major players had pulled out of it, and then I think about 12 hours later they came out and said it was 100% cancelled based on the I think it was Xbox had pulled out. Sony obviously haven't been there for years. Nintendo weren't going, and I think Ubisoft pulled out last week. So it sort of left big players only, really. So
do you think this is a major player? Like now, all the major consoles are just going to start having their own sort of what would you call this? Festival?
Well, they almost have to a degree anyway, because Nintendo do their directs. PlayStation have got theirs, and Xbox have sort of been doing theirs on and off. So they sort of do their own online sort of things anyway. And really, the only one that's sort of groups them all together at the moment is really the Summer Games Fest that Jeff Keighley does. I think he's sort of really the only thing that they sort of do, and it's a little bit different in that. A lot of it's sort of virtual anyway, and it certainly has been with COVID over the last couple of years, that they're not having to get developers and producers and the like out on stage to demo games and talk about their games. They basically just show scissor reels, and it's obviously a lot cheaper for them to do than paying massive dollars for floor space at the convention. So I assume that'll still go ahead, and they'll just carry on in their own way of revealing. Or having their own sort of online spots as required and dictated by what's out, what they've got coming up and what they've got to announce, I suppose.
The only way I see E3 coming back is if it's in a virtual sense and you're going in your PSVR 2 goggles, Bully. It's, it's called E3, but everyone's got their VR goggles on. It looks like the inside of a convention center, but you just walk from developer direct to developer direct. That's where I reckon the future is.
Have you patented this?
No, just talking off the top of my head now, mate.
Yeah, patent. Anyone... It's a little bit disappointing. I heard that E3 and looking at this, it's a little bit disappointing. I've always, on my bucket list was to sort of go to one of these conventions, and obviously never had the opportunity. And to sort of hear sort of something like that's dying, and these sort of festivals and stuff like that are probably tapering out. And Troy, you're probably 100% right. That's going to be the future. like you're seeing NBA games now. You can sit there virtually courtside,
Yep.
watch a basketball game like through 3D goggles live.
Yep.
Why people actually physically going to go to these events when they can do it from the safety of their lounge room?
Yep, I could be sitting in my garage with my PSVR 2 on and think I'm front row center at the big E3 press conferences. It'd be amazing.
And you walk around with
not
your
only that. Yeah, I was going to say not only that, but you could almost do that as well. Is you have the showcase for each of the developers or the companies or whatever that they roll out their 45 minutes of footage and introductions and stuff, and then say, oh, by the way, you've got demos for this, and this, and this is releasing tomorrow, and you can jump straight out of the presentation and go onto your console of choice and just download the demos or the games as they're being announced. So it's almost like you can announce things that are upcoming, but you don't need to wait 6 months for it to come out because you can just say, "Here it is."
Are we giving away $1 million ideas here? Should we?
We sure are.
Shut up. Zip it.
We've got it, everyone. That's it. The Gaming Enforcement Agency has solved the future of E3. It's all virtual. We'll get all the big boys to roll it out. Yeah, exactly. All right. Is that it for this story? Should we move on?
Move on.
Final Fantasy 16, Bully. Tell me things.
Oh, I'm immensely excited for this one. Cannot wait. This is probably one of my top 3 games for the year. I would have thought that I am hanging out for. And they've sort of made mention of some of the DualSense control features on the PS5 and how they'll be integrated into the game, which really adds to the immersive gameplay, I would have thought. So they're talking about little things like when you're opening doors or lifting things up, that you'll feel the pressure on the triggers as you're trying to sort of really push to lift things up. And they've said that they've even incorporated into some of the cutscenes that you'll have vibrations in the controller and sort of movement on the buttons as well, just to sort of further immerse you into the gameplay. So
have they detailed the arthritis rating?
Reading between the lines, extreme. I thought. Extreme, but little things like, because normally that's your time to take a break. Is the cutscene rolls, you can put the controller down, you can grab yourself a drink, or you can have something to eat or whatever while you're watching the cutscene. But you really want to keep hold of that controller because you're going to get some of the vibrations and some of the movement out of it. And I can even say, little things like, if an enemy's breathing fire in a cutscene, that you might get a slow little bit of rumble as it starts to get closer towards you, and then as it's on top of you, the thing starts just violently shaking it. Which, depending on, as you said, your ability level or your arthritis level, or how you go with your hands, or whatever I'm sure there'd be a way to disable it at some point, but certainly to be incredible to have that added into the gameplay as an experience as well. So
how long do you reckon until we get it on Xbox?
I think this is one of the big well, it's funny because we were talking about before about the Bethesda deal going through, and this has been one of the shots that Microsoft has fired across Sony's bow, and it's actually come back to bite them in the backside a little bit in terms of Sony, because there's now questions being asked by the American side of things about the deals that Sony have done with a lot of Japanese companies, and to the point where they're saying that it's actually in breach of Japanese anti-competition laws. So,
oh wow, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, so as much as Sony's trying to water the deal down between Activision Blizzard and Microsoft, they pushed really hard on it. It's actually, as I said, it's coming back to bite them in the backside a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So back to your question, if you asked, is it ever going to come to the Xbox? I'd probably say no, but you never know with the way this is all sort of playing out now. They might be forced to, and Square Enix might be forced to go back to the drawing board with some of those contracts that they've got with Sony, and open them up to either Nintendo or Microsoft or PC going forward. So very interesting to see how that plays out, I suppose.
Yeah, indeed. And sorry, Bully, not Bully, Ace, I'm not sure your history, mate. How are you with the Final Fantasies? Are you a fan? Are you looking forward to 16?
Like I actually played a lot of the earlier ones, like on the old school, like Nintendo and stuff, and like I was into them.
Yep.
But like now we're so far down the pipeline, I wasn't that far off. I was having a chat with a mate of mine, Mick, talking about like coming into Final Fantasies, and like yeah, every game sort of on its own point has its own merits, but like there's so much story behind each character that if you haven't played from the beginning, you lose it a little bit, and it's very hard to sort of come in when you've missed. You might be you played a Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, and you haven't played up until now.
Yeah.
That you sort of like, no, I'm not in that. I'm not in that genre. I don't know the background,
Yeah.
and you just step away. I think the last one I tried to play was it was the open world one where you'll drive around in the car.
Yeah.
With
15, I think.
yeah, which was like
Yep.
I was like, yeah, this is it. But then like because I didn't know the characters and I had no sort of backstory to them. I really struggled to sort of connect.
Yeah.
So I sort of pushed on, not like a Last of Us, sort of where you meet the character, you build the character with Joel, and you go
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
it. You sort of is it Sword? What's his name? Sky? What's his name? The
Yeah.
main guy.
Skyward Sword.
Yeah, yeah. You sort of like and like the game's already
Cloud.
speaking. Cloud, and like the game's already talking like you should know who he is, but like if you don't know who he is, I've got no connection, and he's just there. So
I love Bully's look of disapproval then. Bully, that was gold.
and
Excellent work.
I apologize for me not knowing, but yeah, I wish I could, but it's too far backtracking. I can't go back that far because what are you going to put in each game? 30 hours?
Yeah, if
Oh,
not
and then
significantly
some,
more.
and then
Yeah.
some. It's funny though because there is some little nods here and there, but there's there is actually for the most part they apart from a couple of the games that do have direct sequels, most of them are independent stories of themselves with different characters, and yes, they will have the occasional nod to other stories or other lines or whatever, but they're most part insular games where you don't really need to have a background understanding of what's going on and the different characters and all that. So
It might be the world building more, where it's come from.
certainly some of the creatures and the enemies that you fight. Yes,
Bully,
but
what is a chocobo?
it's a little. It's like an emu. It's like an emu. It's like an emu. It's a golden emu.
I thought
Love
it was
my
a chocolate
chocobos.
thick shake. I thought it was a chocolate thick shake that you got with something sprinkled.
But because you say with 15, so that was sort of that open world setting. It had large sections of it in a desert, and so there was some other parts to it. But this one sort of drags the setting back to almost a medieval type setting of the Dungeons and Dragons and castles and that sort of stuff. So it drags it back into that setting, completely different to 15. So I can't wait for it. I understand it's not for everyone, but certainly I'll be there day and date with it as well.
That's probably another thing from like what you just said, exactly what you just said. And being that far removed from it, like the original games were like knights and princesses and all that sort of stuff. To coming back into that 15 game, it's like, oh, it's modern world, but we're still using swords. But then some guys are using guns, but there's ships and stuff, and like it's such a crazy built world. And I really appreciate everything they've done, and I feel like if I'd stuck with it from the beginning, I would be locked in 100%. But because I wasn't, it's hard to punch back in.
Fair enough. All right, then moving on. The last story of the evening, Bully, Miyamoto's got something to say.
Well, Miyamoto's dropped, I think inadvertently dropped a little, keep an eye out for some upcoming Nintendo Directs and the possibility of another Mario game being announced and potentially released. We're looking at 6 years since the last sort of mainline Mario game was released. Yes, we've had some, remakes or updates of Wii games and that have come through in terms of Mario 3D World and those sort of games that have come through onto the Switch. But certainly we haven't had a mainline new game in 6 years. And to be honest, I thought it's probably a bit of a missed opportunity for them, given that the Mario movie's coming out this week across the world, that they haven't got something to announce to say, well, even if they haven't got that game ready at this point.
The re-release of Mario 64 voiced by Chris Pratt?
No, Well, I'll tell you after tomorrow. But I would have thought, even if they didn't have a game ready, which I'm surprised after 6 years that they haven't. But certainly, I would have thought that they would have had something, in and around the same time that the movie's coming out. That they'd say,
Yeah.
"Oh, by the way, in October or whatever of this year or early next year, there's a new Mario mainline 3D Mario game coming out." So very surprised, but it sort of leads to
maybe it's waiting for the Switch 2 announcement, and it'll be the
well,
launch game.
That was exactly where I was going with that. I think that I think it'll be a launch game. We had Zelda Breath of the Wild as a launch game for the Switch when it first came out, and Mario Odyssey was about 6 or 8 months after that. I think this time around we'll get a Mario game day and date release with the console, which hopefully in the next couple of months we'll get a release window for that. And I'd probably be tipping first quarter next year for the Switch 2 in whatever variation that takes, and hopefully Mario to go with it.
I'm still in Camp November. It's coming out for this Chrissy in my mind, the Switch 2, but time will tell. Ace, where are you sitting? New Mario game, have you excited? And when's the Switch 2 coming? Oh, you're mute there, Ace.
How long? Sorry, you there?
Yeah,
back?
Yep.
How long's the Switch 1 been out for?
38 years at this point, I think.
No. It's only 6 years old. It's based on 38-year-old technology.
Yeah, so based on that and using like the PlayStation genre where they were sort of almost using about a 7 or 8 years, so we should be 2 to 3 years away, you would think.
I would have thought we were due for one this year, surely.
Well,
but what about the OLED
and I know
version?
I know Wii U was a pretty big spectacular failure for them, but that was only a 4-year gap in between Wii U being released and the Switch being released. So, I don't know.
But they've got to go for piracy now, surely. That's, in my mind, they just have to move off of the Switch because it's so wide open from a piracy standpoint.
I'm not sure. I've never really looked into any of that. It's not something that's sort of up my alley.
Well, it's just that
it sounds super illegal.
You always see the news story. Wasn't it Metroid had all the spoilers out a couple of weeks because they'd put the ROM up online already? We see it with every big Nintendo release. The ROM goes online and then there's spoiler stories for a month before the game comes out. Anyway, shall we move on to the games released this week list?
Go.
We are looking at it, Bully. First up, PSVR 2 game. Tell me things.
PSVR 2. So Creed Rise to Glory Championship Edition for the PlayStation.
So this is a re-release?
I believe it is. So it's just an updated release for the VR 2. I haven't had a look into it to see if there's an upgrade, a cheaper upgrade version if you got the original one. But based on what I've seen so far with the VR 2, I'd suggest you'll be shelling out full price again. So that came out a couple of days ago. So April 4th, that one was released. Then you've got Grimoire Once More, which is coming to the PlayStations and the Switch. And that was also on April 4, which is a re-release of a PlayStation 2 game, which I'll have to see how that plays out, but that might be a bit of interest to me down the track. Hogwarts Legacy came out a couple of days ago. I'm not sure whether you guys have had a look and seen how that's performing on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One.
Do you have any news?
On the VR?
I haven't seen it all. It's certainly, we've been playing it on the newer systems for a couple of months now, but based on how it's played on that, and even some of the frame rate dips on the PS5 that I've seen, I can't imagine in any way, shape, or form that's going to perform well in any way.
I'd love to know
aspect, I should say.
I'd love to know how long those door transitions are taking on the PlayStation 4 version. I bet they're a lot longer than they are on the PS5.
Yeah. Might have to check that out for the show next week. Also on April 4 was Meet Your Maker, which came out as a PS Plus game again. That's sort of billed as it's basically a first-person shooter, but almost done in the Mario Maker mold. So you can make your own sort of 3D levels and put them out there for other people to play through. As I said, check that out. That's coming for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Road 96 Mile Zero for the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and Switch and PC came out on the April the 4th as well. I never played the original one, but from my understanding, it's a bit of a different sort of setup for this one. not as expansive in terms of a road trip. So not sure if you've played the original one, Troy, or Ace?
I don't know anything about it, mate.
Oh, there you go. We'll move on. Batora Lost Haven on the Switch, April 6th. Know nothing about that one. Curse of the Sea Rats on the PlayStations, Xboxes, Switch, and PC on April 6th. Don't know anything about that one either. Everspace 2 on the PC. That's not my jam. Paparazzi, April 6th on the Switch. That just, I don't know where to start on that. And
it's paparazzi, and there's a pup on the front cover.
Unky thinks he's got the paparazzi out the front, doesn't he, all the time?
Who does?
Unky, trying to get photos of him.
Unky?
He thinks he's a pretty good-looking bloke. He's got the paparazzi trying to chase him now.
Well, that's why he just wanders over to the window every so often and just
flexes out with the shirt off and stuff. Yeah, I've heard stories.
Yeah. And finally, we've got EA Sports PGA Tour for the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and the PC, April 7, which is the first EA-related golf game that they had, I think, since Rory McIlroy was on the cover, and that would be going back 5 or 6 years ago. So interesting to see that they've jumped back in the fall, but that's the roundup for the games coming out this week, Troy.
Excellent work, Bully. Thank you very much. Dare I suggest that brings us on to everyone's favourite segment? No, it doesn't. What? We are doing a live Ace's Bar is what we're doing now. Ace, over to you, mate. What's happening at the virtual bar this week?
What are you talking about? Hang on 1 second. Ace back with you. Thanks for having me, Troy and Bully. And it's great because this week something's really got me up and about. And it isn't your usual. It's those bloody cheats on DMZ. You know what's happened to them? You know what they've done? They've come out and they've brought out hack stopping, cheat stopping. So now, if you're out there trying to hunt down Baboon Lip, you ain't going to get the easy kill. You're going to get nerfed. You're going to get cut out. I'm going to turn invisible because I'm all legit. I'm 100% natty, baby. And to all you cheats out there, you get the Golden Sook Award. Go and have a big sook, you babies. And try and hunt down Baboon Lip because I've got you covered. Mwah. See you later, boys.
Excellent work, Ace. Thank you very much for a live rendition of the Golden Sook Award. That can only bring us over to everyone's favourite segment, Stoolie, the Standoff. Cool fight. We stumbled on through the entranceway there, but we are now standing off. Bully, can you please tell me, mate, what does it take to be standing up this week?
Well, it always takes a lot to be standing up, but this week we've got Easter coming up, and we are asking if the Easter Bunny was murdered, which video game rabbit would be best suited to take over from his position, and who do we think the killer was?
Number one this week, Jazz Jackrabbit. Now, wasn't this Cliff Blazinski's first game?
It was Cliffy B's first game on the PC, Jazzy Jackrabbit. I think that was one of the games that you could get on and essentially a demo disc that you then had to pay or unlock a code for. But you got the first couple of levels, and I recall never paying for the code and just playing the first 2 or 3 levels, just not over and over and over non-stop.
You and I both, mate.
That was just sort of how you did it back then. But I thought it was a sort of fantastic side-scrolling platformer back in the days when I couldn't get my hands on a Nintendo. So it was there was no Mario to play, and Jazzy Jackrabbit was pretty much what you had there to play.
And look at that artwork. Game. And this is back when they did the awesome artwork on the main menu, and then you just had to imagine that level of detail in the actual world where it is the 8-bit, and I can see 4 different colored pixels there representing a rabbit.
It is, and as you can see, it was flicking through the difficulty there. You could see, I always used to like that, which you don't see that much of anymore, is depending on the difficulty level you pick, depends on what the character animation is. You've got the easy level, you have, Jazz Jackrabbit in a diaper sucking his thumb, and then you go up to the hardest difficulty level, and he's jacked up like, well, not Unky, maybe Ace, but jacked up and ready to take on the world. But I loved it. I thought it was a great game.
Yeah, to your point, mate, I only never did play the demo, but many hours on the demo. How about you, Ace? Do you ever go hands-on with the old Jazz Jackrabbit?
The Jackrabbit's a move that I sometimes use at home, but never went in it on this one. not for me.
Very good. Well, I like the entrant, but on to number 2 this week, Bully.
Springtrap from Five Nights at Freddy's. And I have to say, I've seen, it's for, I reckon, about maybe 18 months, 2 years, it really got into the mainstream and was pretty much everywhere you looked. There was books, there was TV shows, there was all the rest of it. I think they released 595 Five Nights at Freddy's games, but despite the fact they released that many, I never actually played them. So I don't know whether you put any time into them, Troy or Ace.
Well, I've watched my boys play them. They, you're right, mate. A couple of years ago, the pop culture really got its hooks in my boys. And so I've seen all of number 1, and it was the most basic game. It could have been cranked out by one bloke in a school semester, I reckon. It's about 8 static screens and then the most basic animation, but it's just all jump scares and theatrics. I know the most recent one was VR, and I've never gone hands-on with it, but I'd like to. What's your history with it, Ace?
Look, I'm not surprised that your boys outplayed you on this game, as your two sons are legends in the gaming community, and you're well behind. So
Correct.
the moment you said jump scares, I even watching these snippets, I'm just like, whoa! I got a little bit scared before, over that thing. Oh, that's too much. That's too much. So no, not for me. I'm hoping, I haven't even looked at the drop sheet yet, but I'm hoping you're going to mention one of the rabbits. Oh, jeez, that's scary. Move on, please. Move on.
All right, then, number 3.
I'm concerned about you talking about your Jazz Jackrabbit maneuvers and drop sheets. But anyway, let's go to number 3, Peppy from Star Fox. Star Fox, it was one of those ones I remember playing on the SNES, and funnily enough, my story of playing it is, if you'll indulge me, is going to a market with my parents and setting up a stall, making just enough money to wander 3 stalls down and pick up Star Fox that was sitting on a bench, because that was the only game that anybody had available. So I picked it up, and I'd have to say I was really disappointed with it. I know some people rave about it, but I never really thought it was that great, and based on never really enjoying the SNES version, never went and played the N64 or the GameCube ones that came after it, to be honest.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've gone hands-on, but no, Star Fox never really spoke to me as a young kid. How about you, Ace? A Star Fox fan?
The old 64 Star Fox, where you played on the rail. It was that original rail system that they had. It's I loved that one, but didn't go any further than that. After the 64, I was out.
Fair enough. Moving on then. Number 4. Jessica Rabbit?
Well, we might have to skip this one, because Ace is getting a little bit worked up. But Jessica Rabbit from Roger Rabbit.
I got the Jack Rabbit ready.
Jessica Rabbit from the Roger Rabbit video game, which, to be honest, when this was mentioned as we were going through compiling the list, I didn't realise there was actually a game. But LJN, the renowned trash bringers from the NES style, put this one together. So I can't imagine.
Was it a NES or SNES game originally?
NES game. So LJN they were basically, if you recall, or if you know, they put a lot of the licensed games out for the NES, and when you harken back to the myth, I suppose the myth or the mythos that sort of permeated through video game history is that licensed games have always been trash. Well, that's where it started from, was LJN. And you might remember their rainbow logo as it comes up on the screen. I certainly do, because
I'd have to see it.
Anytime I saw that, I thought, oh no, I've picked the wrong game off the shelf here. But anyway,
just looking at the gameplay on this and noticing the trench coat, is this special move some sort of flash move, or is that how you score points in this?
I've got no idea how you would make.
I saw the trench coat. I'm just asking the questions.
I've got no idea how you would make Roger Rabbit into a video game. But then, hey, I've got no idea how you'd make Tetris into a movie. But that turned out pretty well. So there you go. I guess Jessica Rabbit. Although you might be a bit disappointed, some of the gameplay footage there, Ace. We don't have any Jessica Rabbit.
Depends on what that special move is.
Well, if I could pick any of the rabbits to come visiting me overnight on Sunday, it would be Jessica Rabbit, I suppose.
Here we go. Now we're talking.
Entrant number 5 this week, Bully.
Entrance number 5, Max from Sam and Max. Now, a bit of a long-running game, sort of in various iterations, but it was one of the original sort of point-and-click adventures back in the day, Sam and Max, which and it was a bit different in terms of it was a bit
Who was
offbeat
it?
in some of
Which
the.
studio? Sorry, was it?
LucasArts, wasn't it?
It was a LucasArts one, I think.
Yep, very good.
Originally. And it had that sort of, LucasArts were known for a bit of their offbeat humour, but this certainly took, the foundation that, games like Monkey Island had really set down and took it to a completely different level in terms of the weird and wonderful places they went to and, some of the settings and the characters they interacted with. But I always thought it was a really funny game, and they've re-released or released newer versions of the game, but I haven't played any of the newer ones other than the original PC game. I don't know whether you guys have put much time into any of those.
No, I think I've played. What's in the backwards compatibility in Xbox? I know I've played a Sam and Max game on my Series X backwards compatibility, but I don't know the sub name of it. But no, I never really got into them in any big fashion. How about you, Ace?
Yeah, I did definitely in the early days. Like, we're talking about like floppy disks, then, moving into like the A drive one disks, and then into the CD-ROMs. Yeah, massive. I was big into them back when I had like full control over all my brain cells. Nowadays, not quite as much. Age and alcohol has probably played its course. So nowadays, like I try and play those things, and like it's like some of the puzzles and stuff. Like here, like collect the wire to put that with the bit of timber and wrap that around and like connect that on, and then you can jack open the door to get out. Like, but yeah, back in the day, like damn, these are great games. And this is one of them. Sam and Max was one of them, and I'm really glad you guys brought this up because this is my number one, and you are gonna really struggle to stray me.
Even with Jessica Rabbit?
Yeah, unless I see the flash the flash special ability.
All right, then, Billy, who's number 6 for us this evening?
Number 6, we have Rayton from Fist, Forged in Shadow Torch, which I did a Let's Play on about a month ago, which sort of a game that sort of flew under the radar a little bit, but a bit of a Metroidvania type game that I thought was actually well worth a bit of a look at if you can get it on the cheap. But Fist, or I should say Rayton from Fist, so he's basically a rabbit in a post-apocalyptic world. They're the downtrodden, the animals in the slums of the city, and he comes out of retirement, finds his big brooding right-handed. Well, actually, this might be Ace because he's got one arm that's exceptionally big in the other one, and that's what he uses to smash. That's what he uses to smash down the enemy. So, if we put Jessica Rabbit up, we might get him a bit bigger one-handed than the other.
I'll start getting lopsided. Hang on.
All right, then we should probably move on to entrant number 7.
Entrant number 7. So from Mario Odyssey, the Brutal Family, and we've got the various members of the family that you battle away on your way through the Mario Odyssey game up to basically the final conclusion where you've got to fight all of them at once.
Is this Bowser's 4 kids?
I don't think he's.
Yeah,
I think
come on. They're rabbits. Bowser's a turtle. Are you suggesting interspecies?
I never know what's going on in these games. You'd have to read too much text.
Bloody Nintendo.
Oh, I think simple genetics would say that that's not the case. But anyway,
what about this guy, the green guy? Turtle, green. I don't know.
All right, then let's move on to number 8, shall we?
Number 8, Score Bunny from Pokemon. So,
oh wow,
he's been the starting Pokemon or one of your choices in the initial game for I think 2 or 3 of them now that he's been the initial one, but certainly was always one of my favourites. And always I found generally if you do pick him, the start of the game is generally fairly easy for you. It might not work out in the long term, but certainly the start of the game and getting more Pokemon and working your way through the early game certainly is always made a bit easier by choosing Score Bunny, because for the most part you're fighting against plant-based sort of Pokemon to start with, and he just basically rips through them. So there you go. I don't know whether you put too much time into Pokemon, Ace.
Oh man, I'm a massive Pokemon fan. Don't let these muscles, confuse you. Like I love it, but always my first level selection has always been based on what the first three gyms are, and exactly
Mm.
what you said. But I've always found grass to be the way for me. I don't know why, but the fact that this guy's final evolution just looks like a giant fireball, yeah, I wouldn't have selected him first.
I know nothing of the Pokemon franchise, so I have no points to it. Bully, any points from you on the Pokemon before we move on to our ninth and final?
Oh, other than to say that those arms are very deceiving, and there's obviously some massive weebery arms underneath the
What was from the original Bully? What was your favourite from the original?
from the original. Oh, geez, you're making me think back there.
Squirtle,
Okay,
Charmander, or Bulbasaur?
Oh, I always liked Charmander, but I think my favourite when you evolved him was always Bulbasaur, I reckon.
Yeah, mate. I tell you what, if I could have a Pokemon, it'd be Bulbasaur. You'd be seeing me right now. Thank you, little Bulbasaur.
All right, then. Number 8. What is the final entrant this week, please, Bully? 9,
Number
excuse me.
9.
Number 9.
No, that's right. Number 9, the final entry for this week is Nabbit from the Mario Brothers game, the new Super Mario Bros. I think it is actually titled. But Nabbit, who steals your coins and runs away. So that's sort of your first introduction to him, but you can end up actually playing as him in the games as well. He's basically the easy mode in terms of the new Super Mario Bros. So, I don't think I've ever really played too much as him because it's basically admitting defeat that you can't play a Mario game, I suppose.
So what he's saying is Nabbit is my calling?
For a platformer, yes. You get all over Nabbit.
I'll have to invest some time into him. But that is all the entrants for this week. My money is going on Jessica Rabbit, number 4. But wow. I feel like maybe you blokes are piling up on a different number. Ace, where are your chips this week?
Well, we've got 2 questions to answer, though. Who's going to take over from Easter Bunny, and who is the one that killed the Easter Bunny? So you've got 2 choices to make there, Troy.
Jessica Rabbit is the one I want visiting me Sunday morning. And the murderer, probably Jack Rabbit from my side.
I'll go with Jessica Rabbit can come visit me, and not for those reasons. And it's Sam and Max. Max is the one who would be killing everybody.
What about you?
I was going to go a bit different. I wouldn't mind little Score Bunny just coming in and give me a cuddle come Easter morning.
It's got a flame tail. You're going to get burnt to death. What the hell?
No, he'll just warm me up on these
cold
southern Australian morning. He'll just warm me up. The old Score Bunny. So I was going to go with him, and the person that I was going to go the opposite because Jessica Rabbit is a bit devious, a bit underhanded, a bit of there's a bit of something going on there. I reckon she's the one that topped off the Easter Bunny.
Oh wow! Well, I think Jessica Rabbit wins something this evening.
Well, by the sound of it, it looks like Jessica Rabbit's the one that we want to come visit, and we're sort of split. So I might go and jump over with Ace, and who's the one that's killed him? I'll say Max because they're a bit out there, those two, Sam and Max. So it wouldn't put me on. Wouldn't put it beyond him that he's actually gone out of his way and inadvertently killed the Easter Bunny.
Very good. All right, Sam and Max and Jessica Rabbit. A winner is both of you. Gentlemen, that'll do it for this evening's Gaming Enforcement Agency. Thank you both very much for joining me. We are officially now off duty. Ace, big thank you, mate. Always a pleasure to have you on, sir.
Thank you, lads. Great show.
Can we expect another Ace's bar visit? Oh, no, you're right, Bully. I've totally forgotten the 4th segment. What has been happening in their YouTube chat? My apologies, everyone.
Oh, there's been a bit of mayhem in there. Tigario has been in there, and Unky's decided to jump his way in there as well. But there's been a bit of razzing up done by Ace in the chat there as well with some of them. We were talking earlier on about NHL 23 and how it's not we don't have a lot of ice in Australia Tigaro is telling me that it's 15 degrees cooler in Melbourne with all the ice that's going around. There was some discussion about the Steam Deck in there as well, and the availability in Australia, and then the cost that goes with it. So Tigaro is telling me you can get it from through Dick Smith, which was formerly a brick and mortar store, which is now only online, but it's $1,400 for that one. So
and I
probably
thought the PSVR 2 was expensive.
Well, he did mention that. Sean Games did jump into the chat as well.
Hey,
He's mentioned that he did go and see the Mario movie and he loved it, as did Unky, and that was the reason why he couldn't jump in there. He's mentioned that the Mario movie was awesome. He's going to give us, as I said, a full review, and he's been pumping away. He's been a little bit slow, the old Unky. He's finally finished Resi 4, and he's on his way to getting the Infinite Rocket Launcher. Good to see that you're still plugging away there, Unky, while the main players have finished it, but you just do you. And finally, again, another big thank you out to Tigaro, who's dropped a donation into the chat for us with a recommendation that we spend it on Impossible Creatures, which was an RTS game from 2003, ported to Steam in 2019.
Another Steam recommendation.
A bit of an out there RTS by the look of it, where you've got different creatures. He's suggesting my cheetah / baboon versus Troy's lobster and hammerhead versus Unky's scorpion and killer whale. So that is from the chat, apart from a bit of light ribbing about Unky's,
left the muscular arms. That was the conversation. That Unky might be smaller than myself, Ace. Like Togaro mentioned it, I didn't mention it. I don't know. It's just, I think there was it's finally good to have a bit of muscular representation on the show. I think that was what Togaro. There are his words, But look. Glad to fill in for Unky, and hopefully, he can hit the gym while he's away and come back next week and be a little bit more pumped up for everybody.
Very good work. Thank you very much, Ace. Bully, thank you. Excellent work in that, their YouTube chat and across the board this evening. Thank you very much, Bully.
Thank you, mate.
All right, guys, that's it for this evening's show. What else can you do with Geek Aloud? Like it, subscribe it. You'll never miss it.
That's something. Old Uncle Donkey. Gee, Donkey.